Welcome to Creation Magazine Live. This is where we look at articles from past issues of Creation Magazine, our ministry's flagship publication. So what have we got on deck for this episode?
Well, it's an article and a great example. This article I use when I'm talking in public meetings, just about concepts of millions of years and sedimentation and how long does it take to make fossils form and stuff like that. But it was originally appeared in the 2005 issue, volume 27, number 4.
Back a ways.
Yeah, back a ways. And the title of the article was quite unusual. It's called Kamikaze Ichthyosaur. And
okay, then.
Ichthyosaur being like an extinct marine, kind of like a marine reptile. It's kind of like a porpoise or a dolphin.
Like a dolphin, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing, but extinct. So it's long-age thinking dealt a lethal body blow. So let's just read it here. The complete preserved skull of an ichthyosaur was found buried in a vertical nose-down position at 90 degrees to the rock layers that it was in. Unlike most fossils, the head was preserved in 3 dimensions and has not been flattened by the weight of the sediment above it. Geologists found the fossil in 1999 in an abandoned quarry in the north of Switzerland and took months to prise it carefully out of the enclosing rock. The specimen is 37 centimeters or 15 inches long and consists of the head, its long snout with some 200 fine teeth, a few neck vertebrae, and a very small part of its rib cage. It was a young animal which would have been about 2 meters long. It's now in the Natural History Museum of Olton. The skull was enclosed vertically within 3 geological layers, which had been dated according to long age beliefs by reference to the fossils they contain. Curiously, the layers span an age of about 1 million years, and that presents something of a problem for the long-age geologist.
It does.
Okay, because we've got a skull, and it's buried this way. The layers are going this way. It's about 15 inches long, and that sediment that it's in is supposedly encapsulating 1 million years of deposition.
From bottom to top, 1 million years difference.
Right. So this is a problem, obviously. So how would a long-age deal with this problem? Because now you've got a creature where its nose has been buried 1 million years earlier than where the top of its skull was.
Yes, and obviously not. Right? So that's the big conundrum for the evolutionist.
The scientist who discovered it, Dr. Achim Reisdorf, was interviewed in depth in a German language publication that is sympathetic to the Bible. It's fascinating to watch him wrestle with the evidence while trying to hold that the sediments were deposited over 1 million years. He proposed that soon after the creature died, before rigor mortis, stiffening of the body after death, set in, it started to sink. The increasing water pressure progressively collapsed its lungs, tipping it onto its nose and causing it to sink faster and faster in a kamikaze plunge. So the thing's wiggling along one day, has a heart attack or something, dies, tips up on its nose, its lungs fill with water, and it starts
speeding up the ocean floor.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it reached the bottom, its head thrust into the mud as far as its neck. But why would a large marine animal suddenly die unless it was attacked by a predator? Well, there's one question. Why wasn't it scavenged? Another question. How could the rib cage remain flexible, allowing the lungs to collapse, and the snout remain rigid, allowing it to push so far into the sediment? Even if such a scenario were believable to this point, the long ages assigned to the rock layers create extra problems. If the sediments on the bottom were 1 million years old, why were they still soft? And if they were still soft, why was the fossil preserved? Why didn't bacteria or worms demolish the remains of the animal in a short time as they normally do? According to Dr. Reisdorf, the sediments remain soft for at least 1 million years, allowing the ichthyosaur's complete head to sink right in. Then the materials surrounding the skull hardened immediately afterwards, so quickly that the skull was beautifully preserved. These sorts of mental...
There's just one problem after another here. There's a bunch of them listed there. How come this happened? How would that happen?
Right.
And then as soon as the thing is there, then everything lithifies. All the mud that's been soft for 1 million years suddenly turns to stone to beautifully preserve this ichthyosaur skull. Well, bit of a special situation, I'd say.
Very special. It goes on to say these sort of mental gymnastics, because that's really what they are. I mean, let's face it. Okay, so the creature's going along, it dies, its lungs fills up, its foot up, rams its head into 1 million years of sediment that's soft. Then it goes suddenly hard because it's got to go hard I mean, if you're thinking of in terms of geologic time along their time scale, this would have to be virtually instantaneous that the sediment would go go hard
for it to preserve the fossil as it did.
These sort of mental gymnastics highlight the fact that there's no tension between the Bible and scientific facts. And there's a difference there, right? When somebody tells you it's a fact that 1 million years has occurred and this sediment is deposited over 1 million years, no, that's an interpretation, right? Not a fact. Only between certain interpretations of the past, of the facts in relation to the past. Long-age beliefs lead to the idea that the layers were laid down over millions of years. It's those beliefs that create the problem. So there's no problem from our standpoint. Okay, the thing got buried very rapidly in a flood-like situation,
right.
Lots of sediment.
All the layers were laid down quickly.
That's right.
So no million years difference between the bottom and the top.
Right, no problem believing what we believe. When we abandon the preconceived belief in long ages, we're free to understand the evidence in a straightforward manner. The layers were laid down and the ichthyosaur was buried and as a result of a rapid catastrophic process. Moreover, the same processes that deposited the next layer of sediment probably removed the rest of the body. All this is consistent with evidence we would expect for Noah's flood. So I just think it's important for people to understand that it doesn't matter what evidence comes up. You can always interpret it because it's not operational science, right? Where we didn't see the creature get buried. We find it and then we try to figure out, well, how did it get buried? And in that scenario, you can always come up with a story, a just so story, they call it, right? Like, it just so happened this creature. I mean, okay, is that a plausible explanation? Well, I can't disprove it. I can't disprove that the creature didn't shove its face through all that sediment and all. But I can ask some even more questions. Have we ever, I mean, in all the snorkeling that's ever been done, all the scuba diving, and all the submarines we've ever gone in, has anyone ever seen a marine animal die, have its lungs fill up with water, and torpedo its face through 15 inches of sediment?
Or for that matter, see any creature on the bottom of the ocean in the process of fossilization, being slowly buried, and then becoming a fossil. Like you said, those things can't be observed.
Right.
It's not operational science, the kind of science that involves experimentation, observations, where you can repeat that experiment, get the same results over and over again.
Right. It's just amazing to me that I repeatedly meet people that almost seem fearful. Like, well, science has proven this, or what if science proves millions of years? Then you guys are taking a stand on literal Genesis, and that'll discredit the Bible because you're taking. There is nothing in the historical sciences that can disprove the Bible. You can't prove millions of years in the same way you can prove, at what temperature water is going to boil at sea level, because that's something you're going to take the water, you're going to put it in a pot, you're going to be at sea level, and you're going to measure the temperature, and you can see the results in real time. These types of things they all have to be interpreted.
Right, and really the purpose of this article, and it's a good example of many of the articles in Creation Magazine. Right. Here's a discovery, here's some new science, a new observation. This thing buried vertically through multiple layers.
Right.
And the difficulties associated with fitting that observation, that new observation, into the evolutionary history versus fitting it into the biblical history.
Right.
We've got no problem.
Exactly.
This is not hard to explain. Evolutionists have special pleading and all kinds of like just so stories that you mentioned in order to fit it into their belief about what happened in the Earth's past.
That's right. So just really want to encourage people that are out there, get the magazine, check out our website, and see how what science is showing really supports what the Bible says.